Hey YouTube, how you guys doing today? My beard is gray and my name is Trey. In today's episode of the AWS Cloud Quest series, Solutions Architect Role, right, we will be discussing the single page app. I am very, very excited because this is the last video in our series, right? So once we finish this, we will earn the coveted Solutions Architect badge, right? So I'm very, very excited. Thank you all for being with me on this entire journey, right? It has meant a lot. You know, this video series is set up for those who are learning or interested in starting a career in AWS cloud computing, right? So if you can do me a huge favor, go ahead and click like on the video so you won't miss any videos that I drop in the future related to cloud computing for beginners, right? And then also, if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be great, and share this series with anyone that you know, right, that is interested in following this path. All right, so now without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our solution. All right, so we are meeting with our customer because that's what we do as cloud engineers. We solve problems on behalf of our customers, right? Hi, you did an amazing job with the vehicle rental app. Congrats on that. They're talking about the last video that we did, right? Thanks, I really enjoyed that project. All right, that is exactly why I contacted you. We would like to create an automatic trash recycling collection system for the amusement park. Great idea. How can I help? So my recycling collectors are autonomous vehicles that will navigate to trash cans and automatically sort and pick up recyclable items. The vehicles are almost ready, but the application I built to manage the vehicles is not returning the correct results, similar to the rent vehicle application that you helped us build. Do you have a sample app that we can use for testing? Yes, I have a test single page app stored in Amazon S3. You can use it to troubleshoot. Got it. Does it use Amazon API Gateway? Yes, the app is supposed to list all the collector vehicles and also the details for an individual collector vehicle. However, the API is not returning the results as expected. There could be a number of reasons why this is happening. Would you like me to help you troubleshoot the issue? Yes. Could you help us investigate why the API responses are not behaving as expected? Of course. Just one more thing. Does the application use AWS Lambda as the compute layer and Amazon DynamoDB as the persistent data layer? Yes, it does, but the details button in the single page app is not returning the additional info stored in DynamoDB. So there is the problem right there. It says the details button in the single page app is not returning the additional info stored in DynamoDB. All right, so that's going to be a clue for us later on. Can you help troubleshoot our application's problems? Yes, I accept. We accept. Let's go ahead and get started. OS, outstanding, right? All right, awesome. Let's invent and simplify together. Invent and simplify, right? That is an AWS leadership principle, right? I know, some of you watching this video might not be familiar with that. I work at AWS, right? So I recognize that right away as a leadership principle. All right, let me turn this off so we don't hear no fan blowing in the background. All right, so this is our solutions diagram. For those of y'all that's watching this video, you're not familiar with the solution diagram. If you want to learn anything about these AWS services, right, they have video concepts that can tell you all about them. This is quite a few, right? But they can tell you about NoSQL databases, right? Amazon DynamoDB. DynamoDB gives you a brief overview of that, API gateways, and microservices on AWS. All right, so now we'll go ahead and skip through this. You can read this on your own. For those of y'all that's watching, right, you can just read this, kind of see what's going on. Now we'll go to our plan. All right, so for our practice lab goals, this is the step-by-step learning, right? We will configure an Amazon S3 to host a single page application, locate the Amazon API Gateway invoke URL, troubleshoot resource connections from API Gateway, troubleshoot an AWS Lambda function by using Amazon CloudWatch logs, right? And if I highlight this, it will just tell you everything that we're going to do right here. Then on the do-it-yourself section, right, build on what you've learned. We're going to troubleshoot the Lambda function by using the using CloudWatch logs, and then ensure that the details button in the vehicle app returns the vehicle details, right? And then we highlight that, and then that's that back half right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started today. All right, so when we come to these exercises, these labs, we'll know the first thing we do is we start lab, okay? And then we look for any associated lab files, right? So here we see we have policy.txt, all right? So that is a text file that includes a policy. We'll go ahead and open that guy up. So I have it open on my screen, and this is what it's going to look like when you downloaded it, and I just downloaded to a text file since that extension was .txt, okay? So now let me close this stuff out. I don't need that. All right, and then let me close out this downloads. Okay. So now as we're going through the actual episode, right now as we're going through, all right, we're going to open up our console here. So when we open up our console, all right, so now we come back to the steps, and then we click on step 2. We have 45 steps associated, so this is a rather large one, right? So we went ahead and did that. Okay, clicked on that, downloaded that. Okay. Now we will go to S3. Okay, so we'll go to the service S3. We've already opened this service in the past, saved it to our favorites, so we just click on it right here. Okay, and then what we will do is we will search the buckets. So we're looking for lab, and then when we find our lab bucket, then we will click on it, okay? So we only have 2 right here, but just if you had a bunch of them, you can just click on lab, right? You can just type that in the search bar. But since there's only 2, now you see the numbers are different from here to here, but this is just a random number that's been generated. It's the same exact bucket that's on the lab, so we'll go ahead and click on that, okay? Now, we have different objects, right? This is what makes up the single page app. We have objects within our bucket, right? So now let's go ahead and click on the next one. Now we will go to permissions, right? So we will click on permissions. All right, then we'll go to the next step, and then we will edit. So we will, where it says edit, we will click on that. Okay, and then you see the default is block all public access in your S3 bucket. That's the default for security reasons. Okay, we want to clear this out, and then we want to save changes, right? So we want to clear this. All you have to do is click here. All right, and then it opens up all the rest of the policies. All right, and then we have to type in confirm just as another secondary measure, right? Okay, so then let's go to the next step. Typed in confirm, and we confirmed it. Yes, we did. Okay, so now, all right, so we're on this permissions where it says block all public access here, and then we will click on where it says bucket policy. So we come to our permissions. Yes, we successfully edited it. We are reviewing this block all public access, and then we'll click on bucket policy and edit, which is over here for me. All right, this is the bucket policy. This is where you can implement your JSON, right? Any type of policy that you have in place. All right, so we will click on this Amazon resource name, right? So it says bucket, for bucket ARN, click and copy the provided ARN. You can safely ignore access denied, error, alerts under edit statement, go to next step. All right, so we need to copy this bucket ARN, and we can add it to, I'm gonna add it to a text document off screen, okay? Click on that, copy and paste that, come down, and just add it to that same, just to another text document off screen, okay? All right, so now we will come here. Now, in the resources, right, it says your bucket ARN. Like, this is just a placeholder, so we want to copy our bucket ARN right here, okay? And then we'll read the steps just so I can explain it to you. On your device, open the policy.txt file that you downloaded at the beginning of the lab and review the contents. The policy grants S3 get object permission to any public anonymous user, so they will be able to get the information, okay? To replace your bucket ARN placeholder, paste the bucket ARN you copied in the earlier step. Now notice this line right here, right? Because you don't want to just get rid of everything and copy it there. You want to copy it in between these quotations and this /, okay? All right, so be sure that is displayed at the end of the new ARN, right? So that was just telling you everything that I just told you, okay? So now we'll go to our bucket policy, and I will bring that on camera so you can see. All right, so now I have the bucket policy here, okay? So I'm just gonna come here, and I'm gonna backspace on this right here, and then I'll just copy and paste. So then I do have this ARN in between this, and I have that / and then that wildcard character, right? Which means all, and then I have the quotation marks. So it's very important to keep the same syntax, okay? So always remember that. All right, good. So we did that. Now we will paste that information, and as you can see under the resources here, right? Now you can see that ARN is under the resources. So now let's go back. Let me go grab that. I'm just grabbing the bucket. I'm just grabbing the JSON. I can show it to you just so those of y'all along can follow with me, right? So I'm just grabbing it. I always like to grab from the bottom to the top just to make sure that I keep the same formatting, and then I just copy and paste. I'm using Windows, so that's just a Control-C. All right, and then now I'm going to paste it into this policy document here. All right, cool. And then make sure that it's keeping the same formats where I have my opening curly brace at the top, and then my bottom curly brace at line 15, right? Now, I'm noticing it's looking a little different, but we should be fine. We should still be fine here. Let me check if I can save these changes. Okay, yep, then everything is good to go. All right, now, so scroll down at the bottom of the page, go to the next step, click save, which we just did. Go to the next step. All right, so now we will review our bucket. So we'll go back to the bucket. This is the bucket that we're in. Let me double check. All right, so we got to go back to our bucket here. I didn't have to do that. All right. And then we go to the permissions tab. Okay. And then in the permissions overview, right, you see it has public access. So buckets and object right here, it says buckets and object are not public. Bucket and objects within the bucket are not public. All right. So we got to make sure that we do that. So review the publicly accessible notification, click the properties tab, go to the next step. So let me make sure, because there is a way that you can make all of your stuff all of your stuff public. So let me make sure that we didn't miss a step here. Go back. So block public access. Confirm. Yes, we did. Block all public access is off. Let me double check. Block all public access is off. There we go. Same thing. Edit the bucket policy, which we did. Effect allow, and then click save changes, which we did. Now click on review. Now ours does not say publicly accessible, okay? On the permissions. So we'll see how that's going to affect us when we go back to properties. But ours does not. Let me see something real quick. Okay, everything is good, so we can cancel that. All right, we'll see how that plays out later on in the video. We clicked on properties. Go to static website hosting. I know this is a thing. So when we go down to static website hosting, under properties, here we go. And then we click edit here. And they're probably going to want us to enable this, yes, and then host static website, and then index.html will be the file, the document, okay? So we go here, and we go to host a static website, and then we go to index.html, okay? Index.html, that will be the document, that index file. And then we scroll down to the bottom, okay? Let me see, use this bucket to host the website. So if I clicked on, let me see, I didn't see anything. And it says scroll down to the bottom and click Save Changes. So we will do that. I click Save. You can't see it, but I click Save just like the instructions stated, right? So if I went to Properties, yep, this is Properties, and then I came down. So now you see this is the bucket that is hosting, even though my particular bucket did not say the same thing as that one. And I did notice that. So buckets and object are not, if you have delegated access control for your bucket to cross account access point on multiple regions, this status doesn't reflect whether public access is granted through the access of multi-region access point. Okay. And then we looked at that. Okay. I'm just double checking because I know that's an issue, but so I'll know where to come back in case that we have that issue in the future, okay? All right, cool. So host that, got it, and then got it. Oh, hold up now. I won't skip no steps. So scroll down to the static website hosting under the bucket website endpoint. Click and copy that provided website endpoint. To test access to the static website, click the same website endpoint. All right, so now we'll go down to the bottom of Properties, the Properties tab. Then we'll click that website endpoint. I'll definitely make sure that I save that over here. And then we'll just go and click it and see what happens. So as you can see, we do have access to it, right? So everything's good, but we are the account owner as well. So let's make sure of that. So now, okay, we have click right there. And then to test access to the static website, click the same website button. The website endpoint opens in a new browser tab or window. Go to the next step. The concept behind this is when you configure your bucket as a static website, the website is available at the AWS region-specific website endpoint of the bucket. Okay. So now, in this step, in the new SPA browser tab under Configure Your App, review to see the empty field that is requesting an Amazon API gateway URL. So let's go to our vehicle app. We see the empty field is right here. Okay, good. All right, so under communication status, review the current status. So this is communication status, loading okay, waiting for configuration. Let me just bring this over here, make sure we're good. All right, same thing, got it. Step 3, under vehicle app, review the message. Vehicle app, please configure the app backend API to fetch data. Right, and we have the exact same thing right there. All right, cool. All right, and then step 4, return to the Amazon S3 console in the previous tab. Keep the current SPA page and browser tab open. You will return to it. All right, so now it's saying go back to the S3 tab. All right, and the concept is in an SPA, I don't know what SPA stands for. All necessary HTML, JavaScript, and CSS code is retrieved by the browser with a single page load. Okay, so HTML, right, JavaScript, and CSS, that's how you build websites, and that's how you build and interact, and that's what makes them pretty as well, right, with all the, you know, bells and whistles, the CSS, right, the script. All right, cool. So now we'll go to the next step. Now we will open up API Gateway. So now we'll go here. We use API Gateway quite a bit in these last labs, so we already have it. All right, and then when we click on it, now we will click on the lab API. We have it right here. All right, so we have vehicles, then we have options, we got methods already set. All right, cool. So now we click on that and then we go to stages, okay? So we want to review to make sure we have this information, and then we have the current method that is set, which is options. All right, so view this. The method of execution is options. All right, cool. So in the resource details, let me click back up here at the top. All right, so we have options, mock endpoint. All right, got it. And then we have the stuff that's going on. Okay, cool. All right, so now, excuse me for clicking around. I know that might look crazy. All right, so look, if you see a new API console banner, click try out the new console. So make sure that we are in the new console here, and we should be able to go to it by clicking on this bottom one here, right? So now if we click on new console, this is just to make sure that everything looks exactly the same as what we're doing in the exercise. You can switch between the new console and you can switch between the new console and the old console, okay? So they asked us to switch to the new one. All right, so now got it. On the resources page, review the API resources method, right? So we review that. You see ours looks exactly the same as theirs, I'm sorry. All right, cool. And then in the left navigation pane, click on stages and then go to the next step. So we'll come down here, resources, and then we have stages, and then we'll go to the next step, okay? The concept behind this is each resource entity can have one or more method resources. A method defines the API for the client to access the exposed resource and represents an incoming request submitted by the client. So that is the concept behind it. So now we will click on stage, and then we will click on invoke URL right here, okay? So we will click on stage, we will click on prod, right? Or maybe open up that prod. Let me see. And then here, when we clicked on prod, just that first one, we didn't need that second one, right? When we clicked on prod, now we have under the stage details, and we can just click on invoke URL right here. I'm always going to save this to a text document off screen, so just bear with me, okay? Let me do that. And then this will be, I'll just title it API. That just helps me keep track of things, okay? All right, so when we click on this, right, in the stage details section under invoke, click copy the icon and copy the provided URL, go to the next step. Okay, so return to the SPA page in the other browser tab, and then that's step one. For step two, for Amazon API Gateway, paste the invoke URL that you just copied, and then at the end of the URL, type /vehicles, right? Because that's the API we're trying to get to. So we'll come back to that SPA tab. We will copy and paste that. You see we have prod. I don't know how big that is, but we have prod at the end. So we're just going to do a / and then we're going to type vehicles. And make sure that you get the spelling correctly, right? Because that can throw off the whole thing. Vehicles. All right, good. All right. And type /vehicles. Click load backend data. So we will click load backend data here on the SPA page. And now it says load backend data. So now the communication status has changed. It says the app received a response from the API, but the data is empty. All right, and we have a get message here. Status is 200. So 200 means success, but that's just an HTTP code, right? 200 means successful, but the body, it says empty, right? So now we gotta see what's going on with that. All right, so under review, under step 4, under communication status, review to see a 200 success response code. That means it was successful in responding. Go to the next step. The concept is when a client calls your API Gateway sends the request to the AWS Lambda function and returns the function's response to the client. All right, so now we went to the next step. So the next step is going to be go back to the API Gateway app, and then click on resources, and then click on vehicles, and then click on get, right? So now let me move that back over here. We'll go back to API, click on vehicles, right? And then click on, we have the get option here. So now this is the path, right, of what's happening, just to show you what's going on when you conduct a test. Now we'll go to the next step. All right, so looking for step one. Step one is method response. And then, so we go to step one, we come over here where it says method response. Yes, y'all can see that. All right, and then we see response 200. All right. Then we click on integration requests. Click the method response tab and then review the method response not shown, HTTP 200. Click the integration request tab. So now let me click on the integration request tab. Review the integration request settings. This is a mock integration, so it should say mock. Okay. Ours. Where does it say mock? Because I don't see mock. Integration type. Review. This is a mock integration. So let me see. Well, there's no way I can do that, I don't think. But when I go to, let me see, hold up. Integration response, integration request. I was on the wrong tab. Now we see mock right here. All right, so everything is good to go. All right, review mock, which we did, and then we clicking on edit. All right, so reviewing mock, and then we're going to click on edit here. Go to the next step. All right, step one, we're going to choose Lambda, and then we're going to make sure we turn on Lambda proxy integration. All right, make sure it is US East 1 because that's the region that this operates in. And then for 4, choose the Lambda function find all vehicles. So now let's see. Okay, so here we're going to choose Lambda function. We're going to turn on our proxy integration here. We're going to make sure that we choose US East 1 and then choose the Lambda function, right? And then we see from the instructions, we are going to use the Lambda function of find vehicles. So we have a Lambda monitoring function right here. Then we have the Lambda function of find vehicles, and then just the normal lab stack. So now we have the Lambda function here, edit integration request, okay. So choose find all vehicles and then scroll down to the end and click save at the bottom. So we'll save that there. All right, cool. Then we'll go to the next step. The concept behind what we just did, enabling Lambda proxy integrations allows the client to call a single API that calls the single Lambda function in the backend. This single function can access resources or features of other AWS services, including calling other Lambda functions, right? All right, so now switch to Lambda proxy integration. I don't think that we got that box. We didn't get that box when it didn't pop up for us, okay? But we're supposed to click OK if you get that box. Add permissions to the Lambda function. Okay, and then see it's successful right here. Yeah, we never got those. Let me go back and edit one more time. Make sure we're good to go. We got all that. Execution role. We never added an execution role here. So they didn't tell us to add one, so we'll save it. And then everything is good to go. So we'll come back to that screen. Okay, and now we're going to deploy this actual API. So we'll click on deploy this actual API. And we'll see what stage they are asking us to choose. Choose the prod, P-R-O-D, that just means production. So we'll choose that, and then we'll choose deploy. So we'll go to the prod stage here, and then we'll choose deploy, okay? All right. And then what is a stage? It says a stage represents a unique identifier for a version of a deployed REST API that is callable by users. Okay, good. So there we go. So now that we are on this page, now we need to review our invoke AR URL right here. So in the success alert, review the message. In the stage detail sections under invoke URL, review the provided URL. click next. So I'm just gonna come, this is our new, so I'm just gonna copy and paste that off screen, and I'm gonna say latest API, just so I can keep track of it. All right, cool. Review that, got it. Okay, so now return to the SPA page in the other browser tab, and then click load backend data and review. So this is our SPA tab, load backend data, and now it's loading from another area. It says the app you receive internal server error, verify the backend. Now we have a status 500, right? Which is a server error. Anytime you see status code of 500, no matter what it is, okay? So like it says, if you do not get a status 500 error, wait about a minute and then try again. So that was what was supposed to happen. All right, and the concept behind this, if the resource-based policy attached to your Lambda function does not include permissions for your API to invoke the function, API gateway returns an internal server error. And that's what I was pointing out to all of you. I was like, hey, I did not see us give a IAM role to the Lambda function, right? So now we'll return to API gateway. Yep. And then we'll go to the API tab and review. So return to API gateway. Then we see we have our API right here. Review the API. All right, so return to the Amazon API Gateway tab, review the API ID in the logs and tracing pane, click edit, logs and tracing. Okay, review the logs and tracing settings not shown, go to the next step. So when we review something, right, we just want to make sure that we keep track of it. So the API here is DD6, which is the same, right? So I can just copy this name. Let me copy that off screen real quick. This is API. All right, cool. So now that's the API that I'm supposed to monitor. All right, so now we go to logs and tracing. It's at the bottom of the screen. Maybe I have to click on it. Don't see that. Maybe I think I missed one step. Let me see. Stages, right? So we come to stages, then we go to logs and tracing. X-ray, that's a tracing service. All right, cool. Click on logs and saving. Now we want to go to CloudWatch, okay? So we have CloudWatch here. I don't know why they would tell us that and then tell us that. Let me see if I can open this in a new tab. And come over here, open up a different service. There we go. All right, cool. So now we open up CloudWatch. Okay, and then click on logs and then log group, okay? And then the log group that we're looking for is API gateway - execution logs, right? If you're a cloud engineer, you're gonna do this all the time. So you need to always pay attention to the log groups and then the path of the log group too, so you can know that you're looking at the correct log group, okay? All right, so logs, log group. Let's go to logs and then log groups. All right, and then we're waiting for those to pop up. And here we go. And then we're looking for API-gateway execution logs. API-gateway execution logs. This is the one that we're looking for right here, okay? So we clicked on it. All right, so now we're gonna click on the log stream. So now on the log stream tab, click the most recent log, all right? And then go to the next step. So when we come to the log stream tab, right, we have the most recent log. So if we look at the last event time here, right, the most recent one is the one, you know, from the most recent time. So this is the log stream that we're supposed to click on right here, okay? And you can see the same thing. So you have 15, which is 3, right? On a 24-hour time scale, right? So 1547, 1557 would be the most recent log. Okay. So once we click on it, right? Now we want to click, so we want to review. So review the log and find the entry that shows that the Lambda function execution failed. The execution failed to start, status 200 due to customer function error. All right, so now if you look at this in my latest CloudWatch log, I have the exact same thing. So now I can proceed on as planned, right? So now let's go ahead and go to the next step. Let's go back to the Lambda function. So now we'll click on that Lambda function. Okay, and then functions, and then find all vehicles. So we come down and here we are, find all vehicles. Okay, so now it says to go to permissions. We'll click on configuration first. We come down here. As you can see now, the API gateway is linked up. So now we'll click on configurations, right? Then we'll go to permissions. Click configurations, permissions, then click on Amazon CloudWatch logs. We clicked on Amazon CloudWatch logs, right? Then it says click edit for the execution role. So this is our execution role here. We'll click edit. Then we'll go to the next step. All right, so now it's saying, hey, create a new role from AWS policy templates, and then we're going to name this role Lab Find All Vehicles DynamoDB role. So now let me click Control C. Those of y'all who've been following along with me the entire time know that for some reason I have issues copying and pasting directly from the lab. So I'll just come over here and we'll go Control, create a new role, and then give it the role name, right? Which is Lab Find All Vehicles DynamoDB role, okay? Then we'll click on Policy Templates, okay? Then once we click on Policy Templates, we're looking for Simple. Then we'll choose it, and then we'll save, right? So Policy Templates, we'll come to Simple microservices permissions, and then save. So now we'll save that. They're waiting on it to save. Okay, updating the function. Updated successfully. We had the same outcome, same result here, and a success alert. Review the message, go to the next step. All right, so now we click on load backend data, and then we should have a different result than we had before I started over. So let's go again. Let's go with load backend data. And as you can see, now we're having a different result here. Okay, so now let's see what the game says. So now return to the SPA page, which is single page app in the other browser, and then click load backend, which we did step 1, then review communication status and output of the mobile application. So if I come over here, communication status, then it has details within the mobile application, right? The concept behind this, an application can make REST API requests to API gateway, which can invoke a Lambda function. The Lambda function in turn can fetch data from a table in Amazon DB, and the function can respond to the API gateway. The data is returned to the application. All right, so now we are in the DIY section, okay? So now let's see what it's going to ask us to do here. So troubleshoot the Lambda function by using CloudWatch. Okay, ensure that the details button in the vehicle app returns vehicle details. So now we have, this is the vehicle app, details button, your app received an internal error from the server, verify your backend, internal server error. Okay, so load backend data. we need to grab details. So when we have the details button, so let me read that one more time. Troubleshoot the Lambda function by using CloudWatch logs. All right. So now let's go to CloudWatch. And we will go back to CloudWatch logs. And remember, so when we go to CloudWatch logs, right, in our API execution log stream, right, we're always looking for the last event time. Okay, so we're always looking for the last event time. And now we're looking for the same thing, I guess, an error. All right, so successful completion. And I hope it doesn't do the same thing like last time where it doesn't give us anything to work with. Completed execution. Now let's see, hold up. So troubleshoot the Lambda function. All right, hold up, validation process. Here we go. So our test service will make 2 separate calls to the Amazon API Gateway invoke URL. First call would be a GET response to vehicle URL to retrieve all vehicles from Amazon DynamoDB. The second call would be a GET response to vehicle ID to retrieve details for the single page app. Hint, the Lambda function find vehicle does not have proper permissions to run successfully. Follow the instructions used during the practice section to add a new role. Got it. So that's going to be our hint right here. It's the Lambda function find vehicles does not have the proper permissions to run successfully. Follow the instructions used during the practice section to add a new role. So now, within our all right, so now let's go look at our Lambda function. And let's look at the Lambda function for find all vehicles. Okay, so when we come to view role document, so we got success, temps on false, service, Lambda basic execution role, resource is find all vehicles. Delete DynamoDB get item, allow. Put DynamoDB get item, put item, allow. Okay. So now let's go here. An existing role. So lab function role, lab monitoring role. So this is the service role and DynamoDB role. Let's see if we can update this. Let me read this one more time. So the Lambda function find vehicle does not have the proper permission to run successfully. Okay. Does not have the proper permissions to run successfully. So let's see if it's the lab function role, and let's save, because we can always come back. Let me see. To perform on this resource. So we can't use that. Lab function admin, service, lab, find all vehicles. So we might have to adjust the policy here. So configuration by resource-based policy, add permissions. All right, so what permission would we like to add? Like what's functions? Grant permissions to invoke functions through. Principal, invoke functions URL. What was my principal here? Let me look at the policy. I don't know if you can do that. Well, let's try it. Let's try that out and see how that works. A unique statement ID to differentiate this statement within the policy. So I'm going to use the statement ID S3 get object allow. I'm using the statement ID. Let's see how that works out. Was invalid. Members must satisfy expression. Put and try again. Enter a unique to differentiate this statement within the policy. Statement ID must contain letters only. Let me just use statement web policy, static web policy then. Let me just try to use that within my statement ID. It says invalid. Let me go back to find all vehicles. Click here to manage it. So I go to configuration.
Is there left over?
Yeah, in the refrigerator.
It's just rice or we're not going to eat the fish. My stomach's empty.
Well, I mean, we got some, that's all that was there was the rice.
What, any meat? Other meat?
No, no other meat than that. Oh, so when we went to, so coming to here, when I go to configuration, right? Tried to do this, doesn't work. Now when I click on this to view resources and actions that your function has permission to access, choose a service. So now I see first it was Cloud Watch Logs. First it was Cloud Watch Logs. Now I see DynamoDB. So now, let me see if I can edit that role for DynamoDB. Well, it's already there. Lambda monitoring role. No. It's the same thing. Service role. So when I come here, let's see what it's telling me here. So when I come, it says hint, the Lambda function, find vehicle. So when I see this hint, right, it says the Lambda function, find vehicle, does not have proper permissions to run successfully. API invoke URL plus vehicles, right? So / then vehicles. So hint, the Lambda function find vehicles does not, Lambda function find vehicles does not have the proper permissions to run successfully. Lambda function find vehicles. What about find all vehicles? find vehicles, right? So now the Lambda function find vehicles. So if I come to the Lambda function of, hey, Sanai, I'm making a video, please. Yeah. All right. So now, okay, so hint, the Lambda function find underscore vehicle does not have proper permissions to run successfully. Now, at first it asks us about find underscore, I think it was all vehicles. But here it's only talking about this Lambda function, find underscore vehicles. So let me try to go, see, I see that right here. Never mentioned that before. So now let me go and look at this one, right? No, I'm gonna go back to find vehicles. All right, so now what I would do is I would come to the configuration, lab stack. I will edit this, okay? And then I will say use an existing role, but instead of that, I will use this same role, service lab. No, well, shoot. I mean, I think we can, service role. No, what I will do is I will change the name. I will create a role, and then let me come here. Let me go back to this practice, and then I will just create a new role. Maybe I should be able to use the same role though. So now let me, that shouldn't have a difference. If I use the same role for that function, I should be good instead of having to create another role. So what I will do is I will use this existing role. I will just use this existing role here for this function, for the find vehicle function. And then all I need to do is now go back and change. I need to get that invoke URL. So API invoke URL plus. So troubleshoot the Lambda function by using CloudWatch logs. Ensure the detail button in the vehicle app returns vehicle details. Ugh. So now let me load backend data. Now that has, I'm looking, I see vehicle details, but the backend app does not have, well, the backend app does have the vehicle details. Now it does. Before it didn't. So this is the invoke URL. Now let me let me see what happens when I just copy this in here. Let's see what happens. Bam, you did it, right? So basically all I did was I just changed the permissions, like that find vehicle function did not have the correct permissions. So all I did was change the permissions of the find vehicle Lambda function, not the find all vehicle Lambda function. And then everything worked out. All right, good. So, hey, we are done, D-U-N, done. All right, and now we can return to our customer and give them the great news. Outstanding. All right, so your app should be fully functional now. Try it out. Try it now. Thanks. This is perfect timing. Please choose your reward. I wish you would have Ferris wheel, whatever. Let's just pick us like looks like a city park or something. I don't know. There we go. All right. Place people can congregate. Everything's great. Hey, as you see, 100%. We are 100% done. Outstanding. Now we have earned our Solutions Architect badge, and we can add it to our Credly account, right? And we can, if you want to, you can put it up on LinkedIn or wherever, just to show people that you are actually, going through and doing this lab. So right here where it says claim, that's when you can claim your badge, and then you can log in and then add it to your appropriate accounts and stuff like that. So, hey, I hope all this was successful. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, right? If you could do me a favor, please click like on the video so we can get the message out to the people. And, subscribe. Yes, please subscribe, right? Hit that notification bell so you can see all videos I drop as soon as I upload them. But most importantly, share this with other people. Share it on all your social media platforms, right? Your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, right? Say, hey, if anybody wants to learn, go check out Uncle Trey's, series or playlist on, Solutions Architect Associate, and then also Certified Cloud Practitioner from before. All right, so hey, thank you all once again. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, and we will see y'all in our next video.